All right, welcome back. I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Today we are continuing our RBT exam series. This is series number 3, right? We're going through a full RBT exam, question by question, and I'm breaking down each question how I think you should think about it when you're taking your actual exam. So if you're looking for our study materials, please check out rbtexamreview.com, or you can go directly there with one of these links. We have 2 practice exams. We have a full task list study guide. Our combo pack comes with everything and flashcards, and then we have our competency study guides, both the initial and the renewal. You can also check out our shop, gumroad.com/RBT exam review, where you'll see all these study materials online. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below or email me. I'm happy to help. If you are enjoying my videos, like and subscribe. That helps me out so I can continue putting them out, and I appreciate it. Other than that, keep working hard, keep studying hard, and let's get into our first question. So, 41. You work with the client 4 times a week for 2 hours each session. During your session, you take frequency data on your client's screaming behavior. Last week, your client screamed 4 times during session 1, 8 times during session 2, 6 times during session 3, and 10 times during session 4. What was the rate of screaming per hour for session 3? Okay, very straightforward rate question, right? What is rate? Rate is simply frequency over time. Okay, so when they ask you rate, all you're going to do is plug in numbers, right? You simply have your frequency divided by your time. So we're looking for session 3. What is our frequency for session 3? Well, 6 times during session 3. So we have 6. That's our frequency. Now, if they were asking for frequency per session, right, we would have 6, right? Because it happened 6 times during the session. But they want per hour, okay? So how many hours did we work? We worked for 2 hours during that session. So how are we going to find out how many times they screamed per hour for session 3? Well, simply plug it in. Our frequency is 6, and then our time is what? 2 hours. When you do that calculation, what do you get? You get 3 times per hour, okay? So the calculations they might give you on averages and rate are very straightforward. They're very simple. You have pen and paper, you have calculators. All you're doing is plugging in numbers, okay? Because again, rate is simply frequency divided by time. It happened 6 times, okay? That's our frequency. We worked for 2 hours, that's our time. 6 divided by 2 is 3. That gives us 3 times per hour. That's a very straightforward question, one that you should not have trouble answering, okay? If you have trouble answering, go back and look at your basic measurement systems, okay? It's a very simple question. If you get a question about rate on the exam, you should be able to do it very quickly, very easily, okay? Okay, 42. John is working on functions, features, and categories with his client. John taught his client that an apple fit into the fruit category. John's client now says fruit when he sees an apple. John's client also says fruit when he sees grapes, bananas, and pears. What is John's client demonstrating? Okay, so trickier question, right? One of our more complex terms, okay? So if you know immediately what he's doing, that's great. That's a really good sign, okay? If not, that's okay, right? Let's look at our answer choices, okay? What are we looking for here? Well, based on our answer choices, this is some sort of generalization, right? It's not maintenance, right? Because John's teaching this skill, okay? We're not checking that it's maintained over time. So it's some sort of generalization, okay? Is it overgeneralization? Well, no, because John saying fruit when he sees grape, bananas, and pears is accurate, okay? Those are fruit. If John would start saying fruit in the presence of vegetables and desserts, things like that, then yes, that would be overgeneralization, okay? Because now that skill is occurring too often, okay, and at inappropriate times. But saying fruit in the presence of fruit is appropriate. So that leaves us with response generalization or stimulus generalization, okay? Now, what is our strategy here when we're dealing with response generalization and stimulus generalization? You ask yourself, are we dealing with one response or multiple responses, okay? If we have one response, the same response in the presence of multiple stimuli, that's going to be stimulus generalization. If we have multiple responses in the presence of one stimuli, That's going to be a response generalization. What do we have here? We have the response fruit occurring across multiple stimuli. Therefore, what are we looking at? We are looking at stimulus generalization. When there are multiple stimuli, it's going to be stimulus generalization. When there are multiple responses, that's going to be response generalization. John has generalized the response fruit in the presence of all these different stimuli. Stimulus generalization. Trickier question, okay? If you don't understand response generalization and stimulus generalization yet, and you're just starting to study, that's okay. Come back to it. Learn some of the more basic stuff first, okay? It can be a more complex thing to understand and learn at first. Okay, 43. Trash collection comes every Saturday in Sarah's neighborhood. When Sarah's husband leaves to play golf, he asks Sarah to put out the trash. 4 hours later, Sarah hears the garbage truck coming down her street, so she rushes downstairs to put out the trash can. The sound of the garbage truck in relation to Sarah putting out the trash is a what? So Sarah's upstairs, right? She knows she needs to put out the trash, okay? As soon as she hears that garbage truck, what does she do? She runs downstairs, puts out the trash can, and what's the consequence of putting out that trash can is the trash gets picked up, okay? So her hearing the trash can is a what? Is it a motivating operation, a discriminative stimuli, a prompt, or a reinforcer? Well, it's not a reinforcer, right? Because that's a reinforcer is a consequence. It's going to come after Sarah putting out the trash, okay? The sound of the garbage truck happened before Sarah putting out the trash, okay? Is it a prompt? Well, it's not a prompt, right? Because a prompt follows the SD, okay? And the only SD here, there's only one SD, which is Sarah hearing the garbage truck, okay? Remember, the prompt follows the SD, okay? It takes the place of the SD, all right? But this is a simple ABC scenario. Sarah hears garbage truck, Sarah rushes downstairs, trash gets picked up, okay? Very simple. Or if you want to look at it, Sarah hears garbage truck, Sarah rushes downstairs, Sarah pushes out trash can, right? Either way, it's a simple ABC, okay? The prompt comes after the SD, but there is no prompt in this situation. And then motivating operation, does the value of putting out the trash can, okay, and getting the trash picked up change when the garbage truck is coming down the street? No, Sarah always wants to put out the trash, right? It's always, she's always, the motivation is the same, okay? It doesn't alter the value of putting out the trash or getting the trash picked up, okay? So hearing the trash can is simply a signal that putting out the trash is going to be reinforced because now the trash pickup is here, okay? So simply, Sarah hears the garbage truck, SD, behavior, goes downstairs, puts out the trash can, right? Consequence, trash gets picked up. Very simple ABC question, okay? Remember, don't get motivating operations and discriminative stimuli confused. Motivating operations is going to alter that value of the reinforcement, okay? It's going to make you want something more or want something less. The reinforcement here is putting out the trash and getting the trash picked up, right? That's always there. The hearing the trash truck or the garbage truck doesn't alter the value of getting her trash picked up, right? It's simply hearing the garbage truck simply signals to Sarah, okay, now reinforcement is available in the form of the garbage truck is going to pick up my trash, okay? Very simple ABC question, okay? Again, if you're struggling with any of these questions, go back to our task list study guide, okay? Go back to some of our basic videos and review the basics, okay? When you're studying for the RBT exam, you always want to get those basics down first, okay? If you get the basics down first, SDs, MOs, and measurement, okay, everything else is going to come a lot easier, okay? So even if you're struggling a little bit, that's okay. Just go back and review and get a little more fluent. All right, 44. Your BCBA has an assessment scheduled for next Tuesday. She asks you to assist her with part of the assessment. She wants you to conduct the initial indirect assessment. Which of the following answer choices would be most appropriate as an indirect assessment? Okay, straightforward question, right? The dead giveaway here is what? The dead giveaway here is indirect, okay? We're conducting an indirect assessment. What is an indirect assessment? Well, an indirect assessment is an assessment where we don't actually observe the subject or the client or the person, okay? A direct assessment, obviously, is when we do observe the subject, the client, or the person. So if your BCBA wants you to conduct an initial indirect assessment, you need an answer choice that involves you not observing the client. That's what we're looking for. So A, event recording. Well, event recording is frequency recording, right? Where we're taking data on behavior, meaning we're observing the client. Therefore, that's a direct assessment. So A is incorrect. B, functional analysis. Again, directly observing the client, trying to determine the function. Okay, that's direct. That is not indirect. B is out. C, narrative recording, recording what we're seeing. Okay, what are we doing? We're actually observing the client directly. Again, direct assessment, not indirect. And then D, interview. Yes, right. Interviews, surveys, checklist. When we're interviewing parents or interviewing siblings or interviewing people who live in the house or people who know the client, and we're not actually observing the client, okay, that is an indirect assessment. So the most appropriate way to conduct your initial indirect assessment out of these choices would be an interview. You're not actually observing the client. You're simply asking questions, okay, to someone who might know the client, okay? So the best answer here is D. 45. Bonnie will always grab a cookie right before dinner. This leads to her refusing to eat her dinner and engaging in escape-maintain behavior to get away from the table. Your BCBA creates an intervention that involves Bonnie's parents giving Bonnie 2 cookies after dinner if Bonnie does not eat a cookie before dinner. What type of intervention is this? Okay, so we're looking for some sort of reinforcement intervention, right? Because Bonnie is getting rewarded, okay, for something, right? Getting 2 cookies after dinner is a reward. Now, the question we have to ask, right, is Bonnie getting rewarded for engaging in a behavior or not engaging in a behavior, okay? Because if we look at our answer choices, it's clearly not punishment, right? There's no stimuli involved that's reducing Bonnie's behavior, okay? We're not punishing anything, okay? We're not generalizing anything, right? We're not teaching Bonnie something and then having her generalize it outside the learning environment. We're looking for some sort of differential reinforcement intervention, okay? So we're looking at differential reinforcement. We have differential reinforcement of other behaviors and alternative behaviors. And when we're dealing with differential reinforcement strategies, we always ask ourselves, is the client being reinforced for engaging in a behavior or in the absence of engaging in a behavior? So if we're not engaging in something, okay? Because if they're reinforced for not engaging in something, that's going to be differential reinforcement of other behaviors, or DRO. So Bonnie, right, is reinforced if she does not eat a cookie before dinner, okay? So what does that tell you? That tells you we are doing a differential reinforcement of other behaviors. No matter what else Bonnie does before dinner, okay, as long as she doesn't eat the cookie, she'll get reinforced, okay? DRA, we're now reinforcing for Bonnie doing something, okay? We're teaching a different behavior, but that's not what we're doing here. We're just reinforcing Bonnie when she doesn't do something, and that is DRO. DRO is differential reinforcement of other behaviors, reinforcing in the absence of a target behavior, okay? So Bonnie doesn't eat the cookie before dinner, she gets 2 cookies. If Bonnie eats the cookie, okay, she gets no cookies, right? DRO. 46, as an RBT, you are required to be prepared for a session as described by the skill acquisition plan. Which of the following is not one way you should prepare for your session? Okay, so it's crucial that RBTs are prepared for each session, okay? You want to show up to session ready to go, okay? Ready to implement and prepared, okay? If you're not prepared for session, right, things move a lot slower. We don't get as much done, okay? It can be a lot more difficult for a session. So it's a requirement that RBTs show up prepared. The question is asking, which of the following is not one way you should prepare for your session? So 3 of these answer choices are ways you're going to be prepared, and 1 is not, okay? So A, before you arrive for session, make sure you have all the materials you may need to implement the treatment plan. Sure, that's a good idea, right? So before you even get to session, you have everything you need to be ready to implement the plan. Okay, A is great. This is what you want to do. B, discuss any changes with the other RBTs and supervisors on the team after each of your sessions. Sure, right? After you have a session, okay, something happens that you feel is important. So you tell your supervisor, you tell the other RBTs on the team, okay, and you make everyone aware. Remember, collaboration is crucial, okay, to good treatment. So B is great. C, communicate with your supervisor immediately when you are unsure of how to implement an intervention. Absolutely, right? How can you be prepared for session if you don't understand the intervention, right? So as soon as you are confused or don't understand how to do something, you communicate immediately. So A, B, and C all look good in terms of preparing for a session, which leaves us with what? D. Once you arrive at session, review all notes from prior sessions and plan out your day. What is the issue with D? The issue with D is you shouldn't prepare once you arrive at session, okay? You shouldn't take 20 minutes during session, right, to be prepared, okay? Because you're wasting time. You're wasting the client's time. You're wasting the client's parents' time, okay? Once you get to session, you should already be ready to go. You should have reviewed the notes. Your day should be planned, okay? So when you get to session, you can start, right? The first 15 minutes of session is not your time to plan. You should be planned before you get to session. So A, B, and C are great ways to prepare for session. One way to not prepare for session is to do it once you arrive at your actual session. 47, Chris is allowed to stay at home by himself during summer vacation while his mom is at work. When his mom leaves in the morning, she gives Chris a list of items that she needs him to complete. What would be the best way for Chris's mom to measure whether or not Chris completed the entire list? Okay, hopefully, if you've been studying, you already know the answer, okay? Sorry, I had to get some water. This is one of those questions where if you're fluent and you're familiar with your terms and you studied, you should be able to answer this question before even looking at the answer choices, okay? Chris' mom gives him a list. She goes to work, okay? How is she going to measure whether Chris or not Chris completed the entire list, okay? Is she going to actually be able to see Chris doing any of the list? No, she's at work, right? She just has to wait until what? Until she gets home. And how is she going to do that? Well, obviously not directly, because she's at work. Obviously not event recording, again, not directly. She's at work. So what is she going to do? Well, she could ask him, but what could Chris do? Chris could lie and say he did it when he actually didn't, right? So that's not very accurate, okay? That's not going to be very reliable, okay? The best way she can do it is permanent product recording. What is permanent product recording? Permanent product recording measures the outcome or the product of the behavior. So if Chris gets a list, okay, Chris's mom can come and check and see, did Chris complete every item on the list, okay? There's going to be a product of Chris's behavior if he does all the items on the list. If Chris vacuums and buys groceries, right, and changes light bulbs, Chris's mom can get home from work and check those products of the changed light bulb, the bought groceries, and the vacuumed, okay, without actually having to record it. That's a benefit of permanent product, is you don't actually have to observe the behavior, okay, to measure the product. However, to do permanent product, the behavior has to produce something. So in order for Chris's mom to measure the entire list, the best way she could do it is through permanent product recording. 48. Jake is a 12-year-old boy who lives at home with his dad. Jake will often interrupt his dad's work calls at inappropriate times. It was determined that the function of this behavior was attention from Jake's dad. Your BCBA instructs you to give Jake attention every 3 minutes continuously while Jake's dad is on a work call. What type of intervention does this most likely represent? So we know that Jake wants attention from his dad. That's the function of the behavior. That's why the behavior is happening. But it's inappropriate. So we need to put a stop to it, okay? And dad is working and you're working with the client, okay? So your BCBA says, all right, every 3 minutes, give Jake attention. What are you engaging in? Is it non-contingent reinforcement? Yeah, I think so, right? Is there any reason Jake doesn't receive attention, or what is Jake required to do to receive attention? Nothing. There's no requirement for Jake to receive attention. Okay. Every 3 minutes, you're just giving him attention. Okay, continuously, no matter what. That's non-contingent reinforcement. Non-contingent reinforcement, you deliver reinforcement on a schedule regardless of what's happening. Okay. So this is a great example of NCR. No matter what Jake's doing, you're going to give him attention every 3 minutes. It's not punishment, right? We're not punishing anything. Okay. We're not decreasing a behavior, okay, through punishment. VI3, what is VI3? VI3 is a basic reinforcement schedule, variable interval 3. Are we on a variable schedule here? No, we're on a fixed schedule, right? We're fixed at every 3 minutes, okay? There's no average, there's no change. And then FR3 is what? Another basic reinforcement schedule. Well, we're on an FI3, a fixed interval. What is FR3? FR3 is a fixed ratio, right? So we're looking for 3 responses, but we're not doing this based on responses. We're simply doing this based on time. Every 3 minutes, Jake is reinforced regardless, right? So that's non-contingent, okay? And the idea behind non-contingent reinforcement, it's a motivating operation, antecedent intervention, okay? We're trying to reduce Jake's need for attention, okay? So we give him attention continuously to try and reduce his need for attention from his dad, okay? So this most likely represents NCR. 49. While conducting forced choice preference assessments, you start to notice that your client always chooses the item on the right-hand side. If you wanted to avoid this, which of the following answer choices would be most appropriate? Okay, so this isn't uncommon, especially with our kiddos who are younger, okay, where if you give them items, they'll always pick one side. So if you're doing fields of 3, right, you have three items or 3 cards on the table. No matter what you ask them, they'll always pick one side or the other. So super common. We want to avoid this, okay? What are we going to do? A, continue running the forced choice assessment, but prompt the client to occasionally choose from the left side. What's the problem here? Well, you're running a preference assessment, okay? If you're prompting them to choose items, are you really gauging the preference? No, right? So A is incorrect. B, switch to a single stimulus preference assessment. Sure, right? If you just present one item at a time to them, that eliminates their ability or the opportunity to choose just one item per side, right? Because you're only giving them one item and you're recording their interaction. So switching to a single stimulus preference assessment seems like a really good idea. This is a good example of when on your exam, you might know the answer in the first or second answer choice. You should always read every answer choice regardless, okay? Even if you're certain A or B is the answer, read all your choices. The RBT exam wants the best answer, okay? So even if you're confident that B is the answer, which we are, we're still going to go through, read C and D, okay, and understand why they're not the answer, okay? So C, conduct a multiple stimulus preference assessment instead. Why is C not the answer? Well, because we're going to fall into the same problem with a forced choice, is they're always going to pick the right-hand side item. And then D, select reinforcers for your client without running a preference assessment. No, right? It's not really the most appropriate when there's other options involved, like running a single stimulus preference assessment, okay? So the best way to get good at this exam, okay, other than fluent in terms and definitions, is you can explain why answer choices are wrong. Not only why they're correct, but also why they're wrong, okay? Which is what you should be able to do on the exam. Again, if you are confident A or B is the answer, you still want to check C and D because you're still looking for the best answer, okay? And the best answer here is B, switch to a single stimulus preference assessment. And then finally, 50, your client engages in a repetitive behavior that looks like pinching his own arm. This has started to cause minor irritation to your client's skin. Your BCBA asks you to take partial interval data on your client's pinching. You're taking data across 6 30-second intervals. The following data was recorded for each interval: 1 instance, 8 instances, 0 instances, 5 instances, 9 instances, and 11 instances. Using partial interval recording, how many responses would you record? All right, so what is partial interval recording? Ask yourself that first, okay? Hopefully you're fluent, right? Partial interval recording is a type of measurement where you record a response if the behavior happens at all during the interval, okay? So in this scenario, we have 6 30-second intervals. If we're doing partial interval recording, if the behavior happens at all during that 30-second interval, we record a response. Our data shows that during interval 1, there was a response. So we have 1 response. Interval 2, there were 8 instances. However, since it's interval recording, we only record what? 1 response. So now we have 2 responses. The third interval didn't happen, so it's a non-response. Fourth interval, 5 instances, gives us a response. Fifth interval, again, gives us a response. Sixth interval, 11 instances, gives us a response. So ultimately, how many responses are we going to record? We are going to record 5 responses, right? Because 5 out of the 6 intervals, the behavior occurred. With partial interval recording, if the behavior occurs at all during the interval, we record a response, okay, which gives us 5 out of the 6. So you can kind of see the issue with partial interval recording here is the behavior happened way more than 5 times, okay? So partial interval recording is going to underestimate the behavior, right? But that's not the point of partial interval recording, okay? Although there are downsides, there are also many, many uses for interval recording and time sampling, okay? But you can start to see there are upsides and downsides to this type of recording. Regardless, using partial interval recording in this situation, we are going to record 5 responses. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back next Monday with the next part, okay? Remember, study materials available on our website, rbtexamreview.com, or from one of these links, you can get 2 practice exams, our task study guide. Our combo pack comes with everything, our best deal, and then our competency study guide for the initial and the renewal. So like and subscribe. Questions or comments, email me or leave them below. I'm happy to help. Other than that, keep studying hard, and I'll see you soon.